Many people are on a wide variety of medical drugs. Their bathroom cupboard looks like a pharmacy. For example, diabetes and high blood pressure are in epidemic proportions worldwide, and these diseases often occur together. A diabetic who also has heart disease can end up taking more than 13 tablets every day. As you know, medical drugs carry with them side effects, which are often a Pandora's box of hell. You may be suffering from what seems to be a disease, but in fact it is a side effect of a drug you are taking. For example, a stomach ulcer can be caused by a thought life dominated by fear, anxiety, and stress, but it can also be caused by the long-term use of anti-inflammatories. So if you are taking chronic medication, check the package insert to see if the symptoms you are experiencing are not possibly a side effect of the drug you are taking. If you don't have a package insert, go to your local pharmacy. They should have a book there that contains all the drugs and their side effects. There is no point in trying to minister to a side effect of a drug, because there is no healing for the side effects of a drug. Many people are wondering why they are not getting healed of a disease, when in fact it is a side effect of a drug they are taking. Let's have a look at what is the top 10 killers of mankind today. The diseases responsible for causing the most deaths in the developed world is number 1, heart disease, number 2, cancer, and the third is strokes. And then the fourth greatest killer is adverse reactions to drugs. The fourth largest cause of death in the developed world is adverse reactions to prescription drugs that are given to you by your doctor. The fifth greatest killer of people is chronic obstructive lung disease. The sixth is accidents. The seventh is pneumonia and influenza, which is flu. And the eighth is medical mistakes by doctors. The eighth largest cause of death in the developed world is medical mistakes at the hands of the attending doctor. Number 9 is diabetes and number 10 is HIV. Death from illegal drugs does not even make the top 10. So maybe our war on drugs needs to be redefined. Billions of dollars are spent on research to find cures for heart disease, cancer, HIV, and the other major killers. A large proportion of taxpayers' money goes towards road safety and the prevention of accidents. However, one of the most significant killers, which is death from prescription drugs, has been ignored completely. The information in this article was published in the Hunters magazine, and it comes from the Department of Health and Human Services in America. The number of physicians in the US is 700,000. Accidental deaths caused by physicians per year is 120,000. So accidental deaths per physician is 0.17, which is 17.1%. The number of gun owners in the US is 80 million. The number of accidental gun deaths per year in all age groups is 1,500. So the accidental deaths per gun owner is 0.0000188. So statistically, doctors are approximately 9,000 times more dangerous than gun owners. Remember, not everybody has a gun, but everyone has at least one doctor. So please alert your friends to this alarming threat. Medicine may have started as a compassion ministry, but unfortunately, you must now understand that it has become a multi-billion-dollar business. Your best interests are not always at heart. Sometimes it is just about making money. For example, stomach ulcers make pharmaceutical companies billions of dollars every year. There are many antacids that are available over the counter that will provide relief for the symptoms of stomach ulcers, reflux, and indigestion. However, they are also highly addictive. In other words, once you start taking them, you end up taking them all of the time. This is because there is a pump called a proton pump in the lining of your stomach that produces stomach acid. The function of this stomach acid is to help digest your food. However, in large quantities, stomach acid can cause or exacerbate stomach ulcers. Now, the antacids do provide relief for stomach ulcers because they are alkalis that will neutralize the stomach acid. However, many of these antacids also contain calcium. Calcium stimulates the proton pump in the lining of the stomach to produce more acid. More acid leads to more stomach ulcers later on down the road. And when you get those stomach ulcers again, what is the first thing that you do? You go and buy some more antacids. And that is how you end up addicted to these antacids, and the pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of money in the process. Another example is certain drugs that we take for nasal congestion and sinusitis. These drugs contain paracetamol, which is a strong painkiller. So when you take the drug, it does give you relief from the pain and discomfort of the congestion. However, there are other ingredients in these drugs that damage the cilia that lines your sinus cavities. Cilia are finger-like structures that help keep the mucus flowing, and it helps with the drainage of mucus from your sinuses. Mucus that is not drained efficiently will quickly become infected. It is the same principle as water in a river. The water in a river that is flowing is usually clean, but still water quickly becomes infected with bilharzia, mosquitoes that cause malaria, etc. So when the cilia in your sinuses are damaged by these drugs, drainage of mucus is not good, and you are predisposed to more sinus infections and more sinusitis. So of course you take the drug again. Then the cilia are damaged further, so you get more sinus infections. Do you see the pattern? Apart from dealing with the toxic thought patterns behind sinus problems, which is fear, anxiety, and stress, a good thing to do to help you to relieve the symptoms in the meantime is to sniff up steam or salt water, because salt water will improve the function of your cilia and help with the congestion. There are many other examples of addictive prescription drugs. Antihistamines are the #1 across-the-counter addictive drug in the world. Withdrawal from antihistamines, which are used to treat allergies, is as strong as the withdrawal from any other drug. Over 2 million people in America are now taking Ritalin. Ritalin is the drug of choice that is prescribed for the treatment of ADHD, which is attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. What is really making me angry is that in South Africa, Ritalin is also being prescribed by some doctors for children who don't even have ADHD. Because it improves concentration, they are giving it to kids who are doing matric. But there is a high price to pay. Just like Prozac, which is used to treat depression, Ritalin is also an amphetamine, which means it is the chemical equivalent of the recreational drug ecstasy. It is no wonder that more than 50% of children on Ritalin end up becoming drug addicts. Both Ritalin and Prozac have serious side effects, which includes violence, aggression, and psychotic behavior. More than 50% of children taking these drugs end up with criminal records or in jail, not because of the ADHD or the depression, but because of the side effects of these two drugs. So for most drugs that we prescribe comes a Pandora's box of side effects. Now, many doctors and psychiatrists' solution to the problem of side effects is to prescribe other drugs to treat those side effects. But those drugs in turn come with their own Pandora's box of side effects. So before we know it, we've gone bonkers. We are in real trouble. In 1975, Edward Kennedy, who was the chairman of the Senate in America, addressed the problems of the safety of legal prescription drugs, where he said, "This is a serious public health issue, and it is one that is generally not understood among the American people. It results in death of, as we've heard estimated, anywhere from 40,000 to 120,000 people a year. We can't be specifically sure of the number. Some have said that it is a good deal higher. We've had estimates before our committee from responsible researchers that say that the American consumer is paying $2 billion a year more than he should because of adverse drug reactions. The problem has grown significantly worse since 1975. I'm reminded of the woman who had the issue of blood in the Bible. In Mark 5, verse 25 to 26, we read, "And there was a woman who had the flow of blood for 12 years, and who had endured much suffering under the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but instead grew worse." The National Enquirer stated that 4.5 million people each year are poisoned or drugged so seriously by their doctors that they require hospitalization. In 2000, Dr. Whitaker wrote an article called "Just Say No to Drugs" in the Healing and Health magazine, where he said, according to an article published in the Journal of American Medical Association in July 2000, at least 225,000 Americans die each year from the side effects of medical care. In other words, things that go wrong, including an astounding 106,000 people from adverse drug reactions. Not only do we have a problem with adults, but more kids are on prescription drugs as well. Over 200,000 children under the age of 18 are now on prescription drugs, most of them anxiety drugs or antidepressants. 11% of all women over the age of 60 in America are addicted to prescription drugs. This trend has accelerated now that drug companies are legally allowed to advertise directly to the consumer. They glorify their products with flashy advertisements and clever marketing campaigns. They create the illusion that their drugs are the ultimate answer with an unblemished history of great success and safety. And because we are buying into every word of this advertising hype, patients are now pressuring their doctors to prescribe the latest drugs for them. And the doctors usually oblige, especially since the doctors are courted by the pharmaceutical companies with all sorts of sideline benefits for prescribing their drugs for patients, even when it's not absolutely necessary. These multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies have so permeated our society that medical drugs are the first place we run to when we are sick, because we have a fear of disease and a fear of dying. Yet these drugs are the fourth most significant threat to our lives. Once again, it is worth repeating, medical drugs are an occultic deception, a delusional safety. We look to drugs as the answer to all our sicknesses when the real answers are in the Word to set you free. But we would rather just pop a pill because we want a quick fix so that we can get on with our busy lives. Getting right with God and controlling our thought life is too much effort. We have become a drug generation because we don't want to take responsibility for our health and the sin issues behind our diseases. But as you can see, we are paying a very high price for this mentality. If you are taking prescription drugs, think about why you are doing it. Having said all that, if you are taking chronic medication, please do not come under judgment and condemnation. Please do not stop your medication just because you feel guilty now. I strongly do not recommend that you just stop taking your medication cold turkey. There are certain drugs that when stopped all of a sudden will shock your body. Many drugs alter the chemical state in your body, with the result that your body becomes dependent on those drugs and requires those drugs to maintain that chemistry. For example, if you suddenly stop taking the drug atenolol, which is a drug that is very commonly used to treat high blood pressure, you may have a rebound hypertensive crisis. This is where the blood pressure becomes dangerously high. I recommend that you stop any drug you are taking under the supervision of a doctor, and I will not take responsibility for anybody who does not heed that advice. You may need to wean yourself off that drug by slowly tapering it down and gradually retraining your body to chemically exist without that drug. For example, if you had diabetes, I recommend that you taper the drugs down slowly while being monitored by a doctor who must do blood tests to measure your sugar levels and adjust your medication accordingly. If you had hypothyroidism, for example, taper down the medication under the supervision of a doctor who must measure the levels of the thyroid hormones in your blood and decrease the medication for that accordingly, and so on. Most importantly, before even attempting to come off your prescription drugs, deal with the spiritual roots behind your disease and renew your mind through retraining your thought life first. As a doctor, I also have a deep concern about the safety of many herb and vitamin supplements. The average American spends approximately $500 a month on herbs and various supplements, thinking that they will prevent disease. The herb and supplement industry makes a profit of more than $40 billion a year. We think that herbs and supplements are natural, safe, non-drug remedies because that is how they are advertised. However, many of the over-the-counter herbs and supplements have medicine-like actions and side effects. What you might not realize is that many prescription drugs are made from herbs. The Food and Drug Administration regulates the use and sale of prescription drugs, but it does not regulate herbs and supplements. Some Asian herbal medicines are contaminated by lead and arsenic, and some have been doctored with drugs such as steroids. Most herbs and supplements have never been properly tested. Many of their claims about the benefits of these supplements are unproven. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University and the Loma Linda University in America have discovered that many popular herbal supplements, including St. John's worts, echinacea, and ginkgo, are causing infertility. Their studies showed that these herbs cause genetic damage to the sperm, which reduced their viability and decreased the ability of the sperm to fertilize female eggs. Eggs that were treated with ginkgo were visibly degenerated. This has raised concern as to whether these effects would cause problems in the resulting baby. The genetic damage in the sperm by St. John's worts has been shown to cause a mutation in a gene called BRCA1, which is the gene that causes breast and ovarian cancer. I personally believe that most vitamin and mineral supplements are just expensive sewage. Henry Wright told the story of a man in America who had worked in the sewage industry for 20 years. He noticed that all the vitamin and mineral pills that people were taking were not even being digested. He took several photographs of the sewage, and you could see the undigested pills that people had spent thousands of dollars on because they thought it was helping them. It didn't even get into their bloodstream. Even the one-a-day vitamins that you are taking might not even be getting into your bloodstream, and here is how you can find out. Before you go to bed tonight, put one of those pills in a glass of hot water. When you get up in the morning, if the pill has not dissolved, it did not dissolve in your stomach either. 99.99% of doctors, when they do a blood test and see that your immune system is compromised, will prescribe a whole protocol of vitamin and mineral supplements. But as you should know by now, your immune system is destroyed through fear, anxiety, and stress in your thought life. So even if those vitamin and mineral supplements do get into your bloodstream, the stress hormone cortisol would destroy your immune system, and your net gain is zero. The people that you are going to for herbs, vitamins, and supplements in your fear of disease and death are taking vacations on your money. You don't get to take a vacation because you're giving all your hard-earned money to the sorcerer in your fears. Do you know how many corporate Learjets are flying and you are paying for their fuel? Herbs, vitamins, and other supplements, just like all other forms of healthcare, cannot bypass the penalty of sin. They do not replace repentance. As I explained earlier, The only way for disease to be totally eradicated or prevented and for complete healing to come is by going through the right doorway to get it, and that is repentance and sanctification of the heart. If you get fear out of your life, your immune system is healed without nutrition or vitamin and mineral supplements because you don't really need it. God provided all the vitamins and minerals that you need in a healthy, balanced diet, which must include plenty of raw fruit and vegetables as well as protein. I've spoken previously about the fallacy of diets, because it doesn't matter what diet you're on. When you have a toxic thought pattern of a low self-esteem, the hypothalamus via the thyroid gland will slow down your metabolism, so it doesn't matter what you eat, you're going to put on weight because your body just does not burn the food that you eat. Now, apart from that, I also have a concern about the safety of many health diets that are out there. The Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine states, "The sad truth is that after decades of research, we do not know who should eat what or when. Because of the complex interactions between eating and health, all diets have unintended consequences." There are diets that cut out whole food groups. For example, there are diets that cut out meat and say only eat protein and no fat or carbohydrates. A protein-only diet, which is sometimes called the Atkins diet, does a tremendous amount of damage to your kidneys. This diet is very effective for losing weight, but is it worth it to spend your later years on a kidney dialysis machine? Then there are other diets which advocate eating only raw fruit and vegetables with a large amount of barley green and carrot juice. Well, they are right in that raw fruit and vegetables should constitute the largest proportion of your diet, but this is also too extreme. Anything in excess is harmful to you. There was a man who drank so much carrot juice that his flesh started to change color, and he literally died of acute carrot juice poisoning. A doctor friend and I went on a diet like this while we were still at university. We went on this diet of just raw fruit and vegetables during a period where our study schedule was not too stressful and we were able to get at least 7 hours of sleep every night. During our diet, we were supervised by other doctors and had blood tests at various intervals. After 4 months, we were forced to stop the diet because our health had so deteriorated. When you cut out whole food groups, it seriously damages your body. It is very unhealthy for you. You cannot cut out meat and just eat fruit and vegetables. Neither can you cut out fruit and vegetables and just eat protein. Neither can you eat so little food that your body goes into starvation mode. When you do this, you just exacerbate the problem, because when you do not get enough calories, your body slows down your metabolism to conserve energy and you put on weight more easily. I believe that most diet programs are of the devil because they are rooted in fear, self-hatred, and a low self-esteem. Lastly, I'd like to warn you about the danger of drug interactions. You could have several different diseases and be going to 3 or more different doctors, each of whom are giving you their own cocktail of prescription drugs or herbal remedies. The problem is that the different drugs that you take react with each other. This is what drug interactions means, and certain drug combinations are very dangerous. You do not always know that if that drug taken with this drug can result in a potentially lethal reaction. Herb and drug interactions can be just as dangerous. For example, ginkgo can cause bleeding and brain hemorrhages in a person who's taking warfarin. Yohimbine, which is an anti-impotence herb, can cause very high blood pressure when taken with certain antidepressants, such as amitriptyline. If St. John's worts is taken together with antidepressants such as Prozac, it can cause confusion. That's just to name a few examples. So in summary, prescription drugs, herbs, vitamins and mineral supplements, and various health diets are not the answer to disease eradication and disease prevention, and they often complicate the disease with their unwanted side effects. I'd like to end with a statement made by Pastor Henry Wright. If we have fallen this far with the diseases of Egypt and the sorcerers of Egypt to avoid the living God and what creation should look like, it is not God's fault, it is mankind's fault. It is time that as a people of God, we establish the kingdom of God in the earth, or we are going to continue to establish the kingdom of Satan and offer that as the future of mankind. Whether we win this battle collectively or personally, it's time to start preaching the gospel of our God now.
You